Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. Nigeria's fiscal and monetary authorities are set to announce measures in the coming days to deal with the economic fallout of the coronavirus that has sent oil prices crashing. Attempting to address concerns on Wednesday, Nigeria's central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, said, "We will not hesitate to deploy additional measures to shield the Nigerian economy from headwinds." Emefiele, who spoke at the CBN-organized consultative roundtable with the theme Going for Growth 2.0, said the central bank had already embarked on measures to significantly reduce lending rates. He said this had resulted in total banking credit rising to over 17.4 trillion naira as of January. Nigeria's finance minister, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, also advised Nigerians not to panic, adding that Nigerians must adjust to life beyond oil. The minister observed that the current economic challenges arising from the dramatic drop in oil price came as a huge surprise to the federal government, but that the government would need to resort to measures which were hitherto delayed and that it was the right time to act. The Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Mr. Mele Kyari, in his remarks said the corporation will strategically put in place measures that will reduce the cost of crude oil production in Nigeria and create a market for the nation's crude. He painted a grim picture, revealing that there were over 12 stranded Nigeria liquefied natural gas, NLNG, because of the collapse in oil and gas demand. Liquid crude was also badly hit, said Kyari, adding that Nigeria had over 50 cargoes of crude that had not found landing. Brent crude prices have slumped to around $37 per barrel on the back of slowing global demand brought on by the coronavirus and the fight for market share by Saudi Arabia and Russia. The plunge in oil prices is piling pressure on Nigeria's currency, as dwindling export revenue has led to a depletion of the country's foreign exchange reserves and wreaked havoc on its 2020 budgetary projections. Well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that summit took place yesterday, if we can use the word. It's supposed to be a consultative roundtable with the Central Bank of Governor of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, CON. And I think that the roundtable came at an auspicious time. The timing was perfect. Whether that was deliberate or fortuitous remains to be determined. But it came at a time when the Nigerian economy was having very serious problems. I mean, 2 days ago, we lost $500 billion in the stock market. Portfolio investors are taking off. The external reserve is down to about $36 billion. If it goes further down, even Emefiele himself, the central bank governor, said last year that if it goes down to about $30 billion, then Nigeria will have no option but to devalue the naira. So the major challenge is, what do you do to save the naira? What do you do to protect the naira? What do you do to stabilize the economy? Even our excess crude account is down to some paltry $71 million. All the budget fundamentals have turned askew. You know, where oil is now selling for $36 per barrel. But let's pause for a few minutes to see what happened at the Growth 2.0 consultative roundtable yesterday, and then we do further analysis.
The coronavirus outbreak has left businesses around the world counting cost. Besides its worrying effects on human life, it has slowed down global economies, including that of Nigeria, which still depends on oil for 80% of her export earnings. The governor of the central bank says although the International Monetary Fund had projected that global economic growth will rise to 3.3% in 2020, up from 2.9% in 2019, with the virus, global growth is expected to decline in 2020. However, he says the extent of the decline will depend on how the epidemic is contained over the next few months.
The impact of the coronavirus across over 100 countries has affected global supply chains as well as demand for goods and services. Commodity prices have also been affected as crude oil prices have plummeted by over 45% since January 2020.
The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning says the crash in oil price this week was a shock to the country, but sees the development as a wake-up call as Nigeria must look beyond oil, and the best time is now.
We need to work together to take the opportunities that this same crisis has provided for us. For us in government, there are some measures that we need to take which we have not taken, and this is the right time to take those measures.
The chairman of the Dangote Group says Nigeria needs to take the diversification of the economy more seriously and advised that more attention should be paid to the local market to boost export.
With the crash of the oil price today, it is imperative that we diversify this economy. The diversification of this economy is very, very important, and in fact, we are late. You have to diversify your economy and make it great through agriculture and manufacturing. Manufacturing actually, creates a lot of jobs, creates middle class, and also transform countries.
Amidst fear of a global recession following the fall in the price of oil, which accounts for 60% of Nigeria's revenue, the group managing director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation is urging Nigerians to brace up for an uncertain economic climate in months ahead.
We do not have the capacity to finance the oil and gas sector in this country. And if you don't do this, and with the competing needs, with the competing resources across the world, what it means is that you cannot compete, you cannot produce the Nigerian oil because nobody will put his money here because this is a net heavy cost oil producing territory. So we are doing something to pull that down.
With Nigeria's population growing at an average of 3% annually, the diversification of the economy is a must to check the infrastructural deficit, create jobs for over 13 million unemployed Nigerians, and boost the quality of life in the country. The action plan from the roundtable, which will be presented to the President, should serve as a roadmap for the objective. Amaka Ude, Arise News.
Okay, so as I was saying, the idea of this consultative roundtable is in order. There's nothing wrong with it. But I try to follow the proceedings, There was a lot of platitudes, being bandied around. I didn't see a lot that is new. And I think that, look, we need to think even more creatively. And the Central Bank of Nigeria, I hope at the end of the day, got some ideas. And we need to act with a sense of urgency. I mean, in Japan, in Europe, in England, where the Chancellor of the Exchequer yesterday rolled out a budget plan. In the United States, where the government has taken some steps. Weeks later, here in Nigeria, we do not yet have an idea of what the Nigerian government needs to do about the threat of coronavirus and, reduction in the spot price of oil and the implications for the economy. And I think that, that urgency, I have not seen it. And I have not seen any original ideas being expressed yesterday. Reducing lending rates, I don't think that's the solution. I'm not an economist. I think Mele Kyari was more honest in saying that, look, we face a truly precarious situation. Although he says we'll reduce cost of production. How? He did not tell us. He says, for example, that the measures will be taken. What are those measures? So the CBN and the Ministry of Finance should act quickly and reassure investors so that the capital flight that we're beginning to witness, the friction, the crisis, the conflict, the collapse that we're witnessing within the Nigerian economy does not occur. And then I looked at the participants. I didn't quite see members of the Economic Advisory Council there. What is the Economic Advisory Council that was set up by President Buhari in September, inaugurated in October? What are they doing? What are they saying? What ideas are they bringing to the table? So we need to move faster to make sure that Nigeria does not find itself in a more difficult economic circumstance, in the course of the year.
Thank you for that. We'll take a short break now, and we'll be back with more news headlines. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is Arise business analyst Rotas Odiri with the latest in business news. Good morning, Rotas.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you both doing?
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so a very interesting conversation that you just had there about the roundtable with regards to, of course, the central bank getting all the captains of industry together and wanting to chart a path towards growth for the economy. Well, look, the central bank governor Emefiele, he said some very promising things. He talked about, logistics, the value chain for agriculture. He talked about storage facilities, and then for the business and pharmaceuticals as well. He talked about that.
That was a bright spot.
He was talking about a bright spot, yeah. So, and he also, him, acknowledging the crude oil price slide, also acknowledging, that something had to be done, and then promising Nigerians that there was going to be a response from the central bank. That was also pretty promising as well. So we expect to see what is going to come of that. But then, the question is, what exactly can we do? Algeria gives us a clue, which is very interesting. So Algeria has oil and gas makes up 85% of their exports, yeah? And their benchmark oil price for Algeria is $50 a barrel. So President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, he came out and said that they are going to crack down on tax and custom evasions. They're going to scrap plans for external borrowing, and they're going to cut food imports and try to boost local production as quickly as possible. So they're in the same boat as us, right, as Nigeria. And if you look at the measures that they've taken, it's to try to conserve the resources that they have. So cutting imports, not borrowing, and so on and so forth because of borrowing expense. So, I'm not sure what the central bank is going to come out with, but if you want to look around and say, what kind of clue can we get from any other country within Africa or the Middle East who is in the same boat outside of the big players, Saudi Arabia and Russia, that perhaps is a clue. Because as of right now, you have to ask, what's possible, as the question you just put to Mr. Bakrin a few minutes ago, what possible moves can the CBN make in order to try to arrest this slide?
The only difference with Algeria is that we don't have, exactly the same situation. We may both be oil-dependent, commodity-dependent economies, but do they have the same trade deficit for us?
Right.
What is the size of their foreign reserve? What is the size of their, other indicators?
Right.
What is the status of their stock market? Nigeria is, let us be truthful, in a very precarious situation. I know that it is normal for government officials to try to give hope. My former boss used to say, the best thing you do as a political leader is to give the people hope.
Right.
You don't spread panic, you don't spread
Correct.
fear. But as analysts, our job is to work with the numbers
Right.
and to work with the reality. And I think that Nigeria just needs to be prepared. I mean, it may not happen that we will have a crisis on our hands in Africa, as is the case in Asia and in Europe. We may well be lucky and escape, coronavirus. But because we are part of the international community,
Yes.
certain realities confront us. And government cannot keep waiting 1 week, 2 weeks before addressing those realities. We expect that from the roundtable that the CBN governor had yesterday with stakeholders, that going forward, within a short time, certain concrete actions as fallouts of that event will be presented before the Nigerian public. Bakrin was telling us about Charter Arms rules. The Charter Arms rules means, okay, when you discuss certain things, you don't disclose them in public.
Right.
There must be transparency. Everything should be disclosed. Right now, all of us should become economists.
We have to insist on it at this point.
Yes?
Yes, we have to insist on it.
And why is the Economic Advisory Council silent, quiet?
Why has there been another committee set up? What does this all mean?
From what the business community is saying, I understand they've already sent some recommendations to the president because there was all this talk as to whether they should be publicly saying what it is that they come up with or speaking directly to the president. So what I understand, that's what I understand, is that they've given recommendations to the president as far as what to do. Now, the thing though is this: what can you do? Look, the Bank of England yesterday cut interest rates, I think about 50 basis points, 0.75% to 0.25, in order to, stimulate demand. We can't replicate that. As I said yesterday, if you cut interest rates, you're going to spur liquidity, which is going to chase foreign exchange. Can you do cash handouts? The Australian government was talking about doing that. The U.S. government is talking about tax cuts, payroll tax cuts, in order to put more money in the hands of people who are suffering from the coronavirus. The UK government was talking about assisting businesses with sick pay, 14-day sick pay for businesses who have employees who have to stay home. Can we do that? So you really have to look.
Is going to borrow 300 billion pounds.
They have the capacity to.
Can we borrow that?
Can we borrow that? So the thing is, you have to realistically step back and say, yes, we hope, as you said, for your former Oga, it's a good idea to, as a politician, to give people hope. And again, very positive comments coming out of the roundtable from the central bank governor, from the Minister of Finance, from Aliko Dangote, and so on and so forth. But what are the options? What can you possibly do? You mentioned in your question to Mr. Bakrin about foreign exchange, right? It's on the parallel markets. We've seen the rates go up. There's been some demand side pressure on that side, and so what do you now do to arrest that slide? Do you, as a central bank, supply more dollars into the system when reserves, that have dropped 20% from July to now?
$26 billion.
Or do you, try to manage the supply in terms of perhaps, making certain restrictions? So it's got to be one or the other, right? Something has to give. But the good thing is that they have stated that, they know what's going on. They have the best minds in Nigeria coming together to discuss this, Economic Advisory Council and so on, plus the...
Economic Advisory Council was not...
Well, 2.0.
They appear to be sidelined.
Again, I believe that they are talking to the president. I believe that they're giving him...
Mr. Rewani was part of the program. Sorry to interrupt you.
Bismarck?
Yes.
Okay, Bismarck is a member.
Right.
Yes.
So, and
I
he's
would
been
have
on the
loved
morning
to
show.
see an engagement also with the Economic Advisory
Council. So there's that. Then, and look, there's also, at a wider front, we have to keep remembering that what Nigeria is going through is exogenous shocks. Donald Trump, just yesterday, this is just hours after the World Health Organization officially declared the coronavirus as a pandemic from the Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, which is the Director General of the WHO. Trump now, after that, now goes on air, addresses the nation, and says he's restricting travel for 30 days. The United States is restricting travel for 30 days from Europe. Over the next 30 days. Now, he was careful to say that this is a restriction on people, not goods, even though in his address he initially said that this was going to apply to a tremendous amount of trade and cargo, which caused markets to fall. Oil prices, WTI fell about 4.9% to $31.36 per barrel. Crude fell 5% to $34. So in the midst of all this that's going on, right, with us trying to address what's happening, you've got further volatility and turmoil in the oil markets being caused by these latest announcements from the WHO talking about a pandemic to Donald Trump saying that he's going to restrict travel. By the way, the travel restriction doesn't apply to the United Kingdom. They still have their own, and Ireland, right? So they still have their, there's a few exemptions. Also for United States citizens who are coming in from Europe that have been successfully quarantined, they'll be allowed back in. So you look at, the headwinds are there, and they keep coming up. I think Aero will be joining you shortly. The sports world is in complete turmoil now with the NBA shutting down games and so on to the coronavirus. So the question now is the world looking at a global recession? Earlier we were saying that maybe too early to be asking such questions. Well, with such pullbacks on sporting events, pullbacks on tourism, pullbacks on manufacturing, supply chains, pullbacks almost everywhere you go, these are the conditions that our leaders of the economy in Nigeria and other countries have to now be aware of. And this is happening in real time. This Trump address was just hours ago. So it's quite...
address by President Trump was about 24 hours late or more.
Yes, exactly.
Because as at Monday, we had expected the White House having promised that the United States government will introduce stimulus options.
Right.
President Trump was to make that address on Tuesday. And, that address did not happen. It helped the market, the spot price of oil to appreciate a little. But now he has made that announcement. And we have seen President Trump shifting. He said initially that within 2 weeks, he was assuring Americans that coronavirus cases will be down to zero, almost zero. Right. But we've seen now the United States is one of 10 countries out of 114 countries that are affected, having more than 1,000 cases of coronavirus. The epicenter, the imagined epicenter in the United States, being Washington State.
Yes.
Now, so those measures are in order. And one of the things that he mentioned yesterday was tax payments holiday for persons who have to pay tax.
Payroll tax.
The United Kingdom is also considering that. Those are concrete steps. So apart from the travel ban, you see government providing stimulus, providing relief for the people, helping the people to cope. The government showing empathy, either in the United Kingdom or in the United States. And my argument with regard to this is that are there lessons we can learn from these other places? I mean, in California, there has been a ban on public gatherings.
Right.
You know, the NBA season has been suspended. Yes. Tom Hanks having declared that he has coronavirus.
Yes.
You know, we would like to see that kind of proactive response in African countries. And we keep mentioning Nigeria because this is where we are.
Right.
And all of us are at risk because coronavirus does not respect presidents.
Very true. Very, very true. And look, one quick thing. Japan entered technical recession. South Africa entered recession. Italy is possibly more than likely going to enter it. The entire country, Italy is shut down as a nation. Completely shut down, right. Yes. So, you know, you look at all these nations, you know, one after the other. It's almost like a domino. You've got one in Africa, you've got one in Asia, you know, Europe. And again, you have to ask yourself, you know, the measures that you take to try to protect, you know, you from falling into that. Because there are whispers are starting to murmur about Nigeria possibly going the same way. But, you know, we'll have to see how it goes. But again, we thank our leaders and we hope that
the
right
Naira is going down, even without an official declaration of devaluation. And that has implications for livelihoods.
It does.
Well, thank you very much, Ruth.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we take a short break now. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Joining us now is Aaron Akerejola, Arise News sports analyst with sports stories. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Tunde. You're looking chic and all put together with your Alice band.
Thank you.
Okay, I won't comment this morning. I won't make any comment.
It was actually a very late night yesterday. Talking about UEFA Champions League, which actually extended till almost 12 midnight. All right, with the Liverpool game against Atletico de Madrid. And this was a game that was expected, but Diego Simeone once again showing that the dark art of defending and showing his masterclass on the day as they outclassed Liverpool 4-2 on aggregate. And who would have ever thought that coming with Liverpool having 35 shots? And Adrian having to make little or no save up until when he was asked in the extra time, and he actually fell flat. Alvaro Morata and Marcos Llorente actually popping up with the winners for Atletico de Madrid. And Liverpool were left red-faced yesterday, and now everything seems to be looking very, very. It's actually there's been a little bit of bittersweet to Liverpool's season. Liverpool have always been the dominant side in the better part of the season, but of late they've shown that things, every good thing comes to an end, and yesterday was just the highlight of it. They should have gone through. They were the better team on the day, but sometimes it's not about might. It's always about wit. What you can do, you should do properly. And Liverpool might blame the goalkeeper for what has happened, but when you look at it, having 35 shots and having forced the goalkeeper, Ryan Oblak, to actually make 8 critical saves on the day, certainly showed that Liverpool themselves were not very clinical in front of goal, and they should be kicking themselves in the foot. That how did they allow a game which they possessed, or they had possession well over 70% for the better part of 90 minutes, and even going into extra time? How did they lose that game is the big question. But once again, masterclass by Diego Simeone.
I think Liverpool got a sucker punch yesterday, and
a massive one,
effectively out of the Champions League, which is unfortunate considering, you know, their record. And losing to Atletico Madrid. The last time when they lost to Atletico Madrid, we had thought that at Anfield they would be able to perform a magic. You are quite right. They tried their best, but if you looked at the game, the defense. You know, Atletico Madrid's defense was quite tight.
They were resolute.
And even when we thought that, Liverpool was going to pull something back, they couldn't do it. And then, of course, their fate was sealed when Atletico Madrid scored the third goal. Now, I think the major problem yesterday was a game of, at another level, of the goalkeepers. The goalkeeper of Atletico Madrid managed to prove himself effectively. Adrian, I think he's the second goalkeeper for Liverpool.
Yes.
You know, the reserve goalkeeper. You know, some of those goals, I'm not a goalkeeper, but I thought he could have put up a much better performance. And I think the fans at Anfield, you know, they were not really loyal enough to Liverpool, because after the determining goal, the Liverpool side of the stadium was empty. You know, they left. They gave up.
No, because they did it. Who would have expected? As a matter of fact, the players, remember when Liverpool, we said it here, when Liverpool lost the first leg at the Wanda Metropolitano in Spain, Liverpool kept on making noise. The players were all talking that you're coming to Anfield in England and you would actually see what it is like. You're coming to the Lions Den. And yesterday, Liverpool would have thought the way the fans were chanted from the first 90 minutes, they would have thought that probably something would have come up from the game. Unfortunate for them, when you are going against a Diego Simeone, you need to be disciplined. And more importantly, you need to be clinical. I must say, Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino, and Mohamed Salah on the day were very, very wasteful. These were players that should have zoned in for them.
Salah had many chances.
But he kept on scoffing it.
Minutes of the game.
He kept on scoffing it. The point was...
Yeah, but there was a good goalkeeper on the other side.
As they say, the only things goalkeepers can catch are the only things they can see. If you're good enough, you should be able. For Liverpool, with what they have done this season, this is the first time Liverpool are losing in 43 matches at the Anfield.
But don't blame Firmino. At least he put in one of the
goals.
Yeah,
he put in one of these goals. But Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane, the African brothers, who have been quite clinical for Liverpool this season, this is where you earn your stripes as a big player. This is where you actually earn your accolade. This is where you feather your cap. When in big games, when your team needs a performance, you actually dig deep and actually do that. They were hoping to have another replay of what they had against Barcelona last season. They needed a result and they got that result. But this time around, Liverpool, for some particular reason, they might want to turn the attention to the goalkeeper. But in 90 minutes, they should have been able to kill off the game, because up until that point, in the entirety of the 90 minutes, Adrian didn't have any kind of work to do. So that meant that Liverpool themselves will start kicking themselves and asking themselves, where did they all go wrong? Because they kept on cutting through, but they were not clinical at the final third.
That because he was saying that, look, how was Atletico Madrid, you know, with some of the best players in the world playing like that.
Jurgen Klopp
so it was a bad loser.
It is a very bad loser. Now, when you look at Liverpool's season, of course, we know they are runaway leaders in the English Premier League, but it's now looking like a very, very bittersweet season, understanding that in the FA Cup, they're actually out. In the Carabao Cup, they actually lost at some point. You look at all of this and you say to yourself, Liverpool are actually very bad.
Let's leave Liverpool.
Liverpool, I'm actually happy, but nevertheless...
Yes.
All right, so because this morning, the news actually broke quite early this morning while we were waiting for the game between Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder to actually get on the way. As a matter of fact, the pre-game ceremonies were actually up and running before there was a delay, and later on they announced that unforeseen circumstances will make the game to be postponed. And ultimately, it was Rudy Gobert, who a player for the Utah Jazz, was now later on announced that he had actually contracted the coronavirus after coming in contact with microphones from reporters at some point. I think it was almost like a week or two ago, and that has stopped. Although he was not there with the team when on this morning, but they said that he was somewhere else. But for that particular reason, they had they had an emergency meeting. The club owners in the NBA had an emergency meeting, and they suspended the league for now. They will be meeting later on today to actually finalize and trash it out, because right now the bone of contention is that the players are saying that if you want to suspend the league and we want to return, we will not play in an empty arena. And some people are of the opinion that let the league go on, play in an empty arena, and ensure that you actually fulfill TV rights. But the players are quite adamant. LeBron James leading the charge and insisting that rather than play in an empty arena, the league should be scrapped till when everything is safe and everyone can get into it. I understand that because basketball is more of a spectator sport. You can actually see the proximity between the players and those who come to the arenas to actually watch. Unlike football, where there's a little bit of distance and some other sports. So we kind of understand, because the players like to feed off the energy from the fans and the rest of them. So it's still touch and go, and let's see what they will ultimately decide, whether if they are to return, they will be having closed sessions, or they would actually call it off for the entirety of the season.
As you know, of course, the problem is not just in the United States, it's all over the world. You know, in Japan, in Germany, in Italy, in the United Kingdom, sporting events have had to be suspended.
Yeah.
You know, including the Premier League. You know, some matches.
Yeah, Liverpool. I mean, Arsenal versus Man City yesterday.
Arsenal and Manchester City. In the UEFA, in the Champions League, Getafe, the Spanish group, is saying that today is Thursday, right?
Yeah.
That they are not ready to go to Milan to go and play with Inter Milan. They want the match to be rescheduled and sent to another place.
Some matches have been rescheduled.
The UEFA refused. The Wolves, you know, Southampton Wolves, who are also supposed to play, they are also protesting that it is not fair to them for UEFA to force them to play. So countries all over the world are taking precautions to ban gatherings, to ban, you know, close contacts for the transmission. You've mentioned the NBA player who has been infected with coronavirus, Tom Hanks, and his wife, Katie Wilson. You know, Tom Hanks is an actor. Rita Wilson. You know, Tom Hanks is an American actor. You know, both of them, they have coronavirus now. So the thing is spreading. It doesn't respect anybody. And you hold a microphone, you contract coronavirus. You shake hands, you contract coronavirus. And that's why, with all these examples we have from all over the world, we're saying, and we've been saying, that in Nigeria we have to do a lot more in terms of communicating with the people, educating the people, and seeing how government can respond to the implications.
Yeah, no, but now there's another key point, because sporting events have been paid for. Some people have actually invested money into this. And now there's the question of, where should they stop it? Because as we still speak right now,
so is money more important than
that's not the big question. That's the big question. That's the big question right now. Japan are still refusing to concede to the Olympics. They are still insisting. Of course, they would have shelled out $5 billion.
We have to go now.
Thank you, Aaron.
Always a pleasure.